Hello, everyone, and welcome to season 4 of the Inspire series. I'm here once again with my partners in story, Holly, Sarah, Karen, Josh. Michelle can't make it tonight with us, unfortunately, but we also have a special guest, Anne Paris, who is a literary agent from over the seas. So Sarah, I'm going to hand this one over to you because you have worked extensively with Anne now. And just to talk about the publishing puzzle, navigating the picture book industry and exploring the competitive nature, I guess, of the challenges authors and illustrators face in finding a publisher and an agent. So over to you, Sarah.
Hello. Right. I wanted to start by saying, obviously, this episode is all about the publishing puzzle and navigating our way through. So I think just to kind of start, it's really important for us to say to people, anyone that's kind of looking in and wanting to kind of test the waters, it is a puzzle and you will forever be navigating. And I think a lot of people, when they first come into the industry, especially the kid lit industry, and they have all these wonderful ideas, and they're going to do a book, and it's going to be out there for everyone to read. You're not failing if you're still navigating and trying to put this puzzle together 2, 3, 4 years down the line, because this is just how it is. It's not linear, and we are just constantly turning corners to look at the next trend or how to promote ourselves, or what books are flying off the shelves at that point, or which publishing house to go for and how to pitch ourselves. Like, we're just doing it all the time. We're always navigating ourselves. I think it's really important because I know that so many people in the first year or so drop out because they think, I'm just not getting anywhere, I'm not doing it, I'm not finding my way. So I think we're going to talk today about a few key points that we can offer to people, but I just think it's really important to kind of just start with you're not failing. This is how the industry is. It's fast paced, but also things take time. I mean, to publish a book can take up to 2 years from the moment it's accepted. So there's so much going on. You will continue to navigate. The best way you can put this puzzle together is to focus on your journey, because as soon as you start looking elsewhere, that's going to become even more complicated. So today it's focusing on you, what you want to achieve, and how your journey is going to look. So we're talking about the publishing puzzle, and we do have my agent Anne here today, because we are asked this question a lot. First of all, how to get an agent, and if we need one. And I'll just start off by saying I'm obviously sitting here in the UK. We've got Canada, France, Australia, and it is different. In the UK, yes, it is something that a lot of people aim for, to get an agent, because actually in the UK it's needed more. And the reason that we really do need an agent to represent us in the UK is because for us, a lot of the publishing houses, particularly the big 5, Penguin, Bloomsbury, Hatchett's, they do not accept unsolicited manuscripts. So they would not accept somebody who's written a picture book to just send it in. It has to go through an agent. Whether this industry is going to change, I don't know. But for the moment in the UK, that's how it is. There are a lot of other publishing houses that would accept a manuscript from an author who doesn't have an agent. But it's definitely something in the UK that we're kind of sort of told that we really need to attain is to get this agent. And of course, agents do a lot more than just reaching out to publishers. I mean, for example, my agent Anne, I would say, is an editorial agent as well. Her editing skills is amazing, and there is a difference between agents. So I was gonna ask Anne, that's gonna be my first question actually. what do you think are the two most important things that an author should be expecting or looking for from an agent?
So from an agent in general, you would expect the agent to be submitting your manuscripts to publishers, to be representing you and handling all this technical aspect of reaching out to publishers and chasing after them to get replies and everything. And then you would expect also the agent to negotiate the contract for you. Once you have a positive answer, you want your agent to take charge of everything, check if the contract is correct, and make sure you get the best conditions. Then for my agency in particular, we are a bit different. We are not that good at negotiating contracts because we are publishers. We used to be publishers before being agents. So our specialty is not the negotiation, it's the editorial skill that you mentioned. We do a lot of work on the text before we send them to publishers. So we are more editorial experts. And then we have people in the agencies that negotiate the contracts for us. We have a juridical team. But me as an agent, I'm more specialized in working on the text and reaching out to publishers.
Yeah, and I think also what's really important as well to say with agents, I mean, for example, Anne attended the Frankfurt Book Fair last year, which is huge for us, and we've got Bologna coming up. So your agent is going to be in a better position to attend festivals on your behalf, book fairs on your behalf, where they're going to be networking and meeting these publishers. So inevitably what happens is your agent will start to build up relationships with publishing houses and editors. So it will become easier for them to be able to reach out to editors for their author clients. So that's, you know, that's definitely a plus for me. And also I think there
Can I
have
just
been
intervene
moments.
on that,
Yeah,
Sarah?
yeah, pardon.
You mentioned going to international fairs and everything. So
Yeah,
it's not something you should actually expect from an agent. We do
yeah,
that because we are also doing foreign rights, but usually it's your publishers that's supposed to be representing you on foreign right fairs. So it's a plus, but it's not something you have to expect from an agent.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And for example, we've got London Book Fair coming up. So I'm going to London Book Fair as an author, and the London Book Fair is very much about publishers on publishers. I mean, there's a lot of the buying and selling teams, and they're really networking together. But London Book Fair this year are really trying to make it more author friendly, and they're creating a space for authors. But ultimately, I know that a couple of publishing houses that I may speak to, ultimately for me, they'll ask if I have an agent, and then they will speak to Anne afterwards, because you know in the UK that's just how we work. But I know it's different in Australia. So Karen, I know that you had a couple of questions for Anne about this.
I sent you them,
Yeah.
but I can't remember what I sent you.
Okay, so you were asking,
I sent them the other day. I've been running around doing book stuff.
It's fine. You've been authoring. I mean, that's what we do. It's fine. You were going to ask Anne about whether it's harder as a picture book author to get an agent as opposed to a writer outside of that.
Okay, so that's a very interesting question, because you are expecting me to answer that yes, it's harder. And yes, it is, but not for the reason you expect.
Oh.
So yes, it's actually harder to find an agent if you are only doing picture books, because we have very few specialized agents specialized in children literature. So usually agents will be more specialized on fiction for adults. And it's going to be difficult to find an agent in children literature, whether you write picture books or fiction novels or anything specialized in children. It's going to be harder for several reasons. The main one being that children literature is less profitable. You know that it's a hard reality of our jobs. So if you as an author make less money, then we as an agent will make less money as well. And it's already really hard to live off being an author or an agent. So for us, it's more profitable to work in the adult industry. It's also more difficult to find agents in picture books specifically because, at least in France, I'm not sure it's work like that in your countries, but in France, publishers won't take illustrated projects. So if you want to send picture books, you have to send only the text, and then they will find the illustration. So if you are both writing and illustrating your work, we as agents are going to refuse to represent you. Not because it's not good, but because it's going to be really hard to push the project to publishers.
Yeah, I would say I've got a friend who's she is an author illustrator, but she has two separate agents, one for her illustrative work and one for her written work. There are a couple of, and I'm really talking about a couple of boutique agencies in the UK who will take on author illustrators, but we're, you know, and they're actually quite big, but we've out of all the agencies, we've probably only got about two of them, because publishing houses, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think publishing houses, you know, they have that aesthetic, they have in their minds already what style they want. So yeah, so I do know that there's a two agent thing going on with some of my friends in the UK, definitely, for sure. I mean, this, you know, this is all specific, and it may be different elsewhere. Karen, you did also want to know about what an agent would look for in an author. Is it just the writing?
Just the writing, or the whole person and your brand and what you do as an author, not just what you write? Is that important, or?
Yeah, so it's really difficult to answer this question because I can only speak for myself. I don't know how the other agents work, but yes, we are looking for the writing. It's very important. It has to have a style, a tone, a voice. But we also have to be realistic and look for things that would make the text publishable. So a lot of good text won't get published, but it's not because the text is bad, it's because of other reasons. So we have to look for those reasons that are very difficult to define. Stuff like, is it going on a trend that will work in the publishing market, for instance? Is the writer already published? Does he have a lot of support for his work? Is it going to be easy to represent to publishing house? There are a lot of factors, but the writing still is the most important. So we don't look only for the writing, but mostly for the writing.
Is social media important or not?
Yes and no. So if you have a good social media presence with a lot of followers and stuff like that, it's going to be a plus, a bonus that will make us want to work with you more. But on the contrary, if you don't have that, it won't make us want to work with you less. It's just a plus if you have it.
Yeah.
It's interesting because in Australia, you're called a double threat if you're an author and an illustrator, like Josh, and they look for author illustrators here, publishing houses. But if you just write or you just illustrate, like what you said, and we are to just send our manuscript in, and it's not our job to suggest an illustrator or say how an illustrator should do the work or anything like that. It's just to see if the writing is strong enough, has a voice, hits the mark, and stands on its own.
Yeah, that's really interesting because obviously, you know, it's just shown that we're in this one industry and this probably this one hashtag, but it is so different country to country. Josh, I was going to ask you, because we started off by saying about challenges within the industry. What's been your biggest challenge that you've faced as an author illustrator in the kidlit community?
I would have to say, this has been a little bit brave, is I've been in a comfortable position where I've been with the same publisher for about 10 years. And then when you try and go, okay, well, I need to move out, or I need to spread my wings or go bigger, it is almost like starting again, because you've got to go back to that original spot, go, do I need an agent? Do I want to find a publisher first? And obviously the golden rule is that you always pitch to agents first. And if you get rejected, then go to the publishers. Because if you go to a publisher first, then you can't go to an agent because they've got nothing to pitch to. So it's like, okay, and then when you and then as what Anne was saying, as what you were saying, with agents, it's very much, there's only a handful of agents in Australia. It's a very small industry, and a lot of publishing houses are the same as they are in Britain. You know, you've got to be, they don't take unsolicited manuscripts. You've got to go through an agent, but to get into an agent is another thing altogether. You've got to know someone, you've got to know them, you've got to know someone who knows someone, that sort of thing. So for me, the big challenge is starting from scratch and going, okay, sure, I may have had 10 books published and all that, but when you actually look back at going, okay, well, where do I go to now? It's like, okay, the logical thing is to go to an agent, because then you can then have more options. However, to get into the agency is the big thing. And as Anne would know, that you would have 1,000 people trying to get in, but you can only have space for so many, and you're going to be really choosy in who you're going to take on. And that author has to have all the credentials. They've got to write well, they've got to illustrate well, they've got to have the social media presence, they've got to be warm and welcoming and easy to work with, and you know, and even fun to work with, or something like that. So that's the biggest challenge for me, is where I'm at this point in time. So yeah.
Do you feel like you're going to have to reinvent yourself, or are you going to stay as you are and just branch out with other publishers?
I think what I'm doing is branching out with stuff that I write. So I'm not just going to stay in the kids lit community. I think, because what was interesting, what Anne was saying, was that a lot of agents really prefer non kids lit stuff. So it's got to be adult stuff, and that's where I'm going to be moving into. But also it will dovetail into the kids stuff at the same time. So
yeah,
look, the whole process can take so long. I mean, to a pitch to an agent can take 3 or 4 or 5 months before they even get back to you. And meanwhile, you've got grey hair and you've got fat and all that sort of stuff, and you've got depression, you've got diabetes and stuff. But it's like, really, do you wait, or do you just go, okay, I'm going to fire all my missiles all at once and just see what lands, and then take that decision? So that's kind of like what I'm doing at the moment.
Do you know what, Josh? I can really see you with graphic novels, and I don't know why, but I can just see you in that area. I mean, they're here, I don't know, it's like in Australia, but they're huge. My 7-year-old and all the children in her class have suddenly just put all the picture books to one side, and they're all bringing in, you know, like Dog Man and all these.
Yeah.
And they just love this whole kind of cartoony, funny, slightly edgy range of them.
Well, funny you mentioned that, because my new illustration style, which I'm experimenting with at the moment, because I normally draw stick figures or animals with big eyes, but I'm now actually drawing full-bodied people with actual arms and legs and with pants on and stuff like that. So look, you just never know. You never know, Sarah, where things can go, you know.
Yeah, it is very kind of, I would say, you know, things change from day to day, and it is very competitive. Holly, I was going to ask you, how do you cope with such a competitive industry?
No, for example, I have never pursued an agent, and I would be interested in what you recommend. And I am in Canada and writing. I've written nonfiction. I'm currently writing a fiction, and I've got a children's book started. I guess what I've always leaned towards, I started with Karen Weaver in, of course, everyone, I'm sure all of you know her already. So I started with the intent of writing with her in an anthology, and then well, just with her, I just find she just encourages you to just go for it. And it's typically either Ireland, people from Ireland or Australia that I tend to work with. And sometimes I find in Canada, sometimes we will hold back on things. And so I tend to be like, okay, I'm partnering up with people that are definitely pushing forward. And so that's what I've done.
Yeah, so you just focus on your journey, which is what I kind of said at the beginning, because so many people also say, you know, it does seem crazy, and it does seem that you're going for this acceptance, rejection. Why are you still in it? Well, me personally, I enjoy it. I absolutely enjoy it. I did a school event yesterday in the US for World Read Loud Day, and I had 50 classrooms come on. It was virtual. And I was just absolutely overwhelmed by just the questions coming from the children via the teachers, and that's why we do it. And I was going to say to you, Karen, you know, you're having an amazing journey at the moment with your new picture book, Our Shell Harbour. Do you feel like you just get so much enjoyment from this? So forget all of the challenges that we face. Does that excitement still override every book?
I created the book because it's for the children and the community, and it's for them to see and appreciate and be connected to their place and their culture. And that's what the book's doing, and that's what the book was intended to do. So I'm getting the rewards because I'm out there and that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And we
and
don't
having people talk to you,
have a bookstore, so I'm it. I have to do it.
yeah,
There is a
yeah,
bookstore or whatever. I have to be out and try and think, what am I going to do? And it's hard because sometimes you don't want to do it, but you do it.
yeah.
But I did find something really interesting that Anne said about their speciality is editing, because in Australia, if your manuscript has not been critiqued, assessed, and is not the best it can be, they tell you not to send it at all. It won't be looked at. And they're not expecting to do any editing. It might be tweaks, but they want a polished product. They say there are that many good manuscripts they get that they don't want to be spending time working on one.
Really? Oh, okay. Because I've heard a little bit different stuff there, Karen, where some people, a lot of agents, whatever, go, okay, well, let's do a structural edit again. Let's do this. Let's do
I
that.
don't know about an agent, but the publishers.
Oh, okay.
And if you want an agent, probably in Australia, the only way, because it is so niche, this is a tip for you, Josh, because you're looking for one, is sometimes you might be able to get a critique with them at a conference.
Yes, I've heard that. Yes.
Might be your only way in, and then you actually meet them and they know your name. But if, like Anne said, if it's all about the writing, if they don't gel with the writing, you can be the most wonderful person in the world, but they just whatever it is.
And I think when we just to clarify to people listening, when we're talking about editing, it's not actually kind of really the grammatical editing, you know. Obviously that's important, because as writers we just write, and we obviously make grammatical mistakes. It's, I mean, I know definitely with Anne sees, you know, it's through different eyes, and it's the voice and it's the narrative, and sometimes she can just shift that slightly from a character or how I'm speaking, and I'm like, oh yes, because we're so into it, we just don't see, and we're only rereading it back to ourselves all the time through how we're hearing it. And sometimes that's all it needs, is that kind of narrative shift, or you know, just tiny tweaks, but that can be the difference. And I just feel, yeah, it's worth gold to have that kind of insight. I mean, I think today we're talking about all the different challenges and all the different turns, and but we are all still here, and we're still smiling and enjoying it. And I was going to ask you, because we've said that the publishing industry, you know, trends come and go really quickly, although it can take a long time for a book to publish from start to finish. So sometimes we make the mistake of looking around us at this moment to see what the trends are, but really these trends were set 2 years before. So we need to be looking ahead all the time. Do you have any ideas for trends, picture book trends, for probably next year, 2025?
Okay, so I'm not a genius. I don't know what's going to be the trend, but I can make some observations. So right now, the big trend in so it's not in picture book, but it's in young adult books. It's romantasy. Did you heard about romantasy?
No.
So it's a mix between romance and fantasy. So it's love stories, but in a fantasy context. So it's a huge
Oh, wow.
trend in France right now. All publishers are asking me if I have romantasy books. So obviously it's not in picture books. The big question is it going to affect picture book trends? I think the answer is no, but some aspect of it will affect the publishing of picture books. And the main one is the feminist aspect of romantasy, because it's often written by women for women. So I think, yes, in picture book, we are going to see more and more feminism. So it has already started, of course, but I think it's going to be more and more important. I think ecology and protection of the environment that started a few years back is going to keep going. The trend of children happiness and mental health, I think, is going to keep going as well. And I think it's going to be reinforced by all the opening to differences that we see happening. So it's going to be either opening ourselves to new cultures and countries and discovering stories from other countries, but also trends about neurodivergence. Do you say that in English?
Yes.
Yes, so especially ADHD, it's becoming very popular in France. So I think we are going to see a lot of picture book about mental health and how to cope with neurodivergences and ADHD, and also maybe LGBT topics as well. So yeah, that's my main take about the trends.
Yeah, and that sounds actually, I think, pretty similar to the UK. I mean, they seem to be the trends that are really picking up here. Do we ever see, I mean, you mentioned young adult YA books, and then obviously we have middle grade, and then we go down to picture books. Do we ever see topics that are really trending in YA then kind of come down to the younger readers? Does that happen?
It can happen, yes. It's not usually the topics that are of interest to young adults and teenagers are very different from topics interesting to children. So it doesn't happen a lot, but publishers are more interested in the marketing aspect. And right now they know that romantasy is what's working. So I think they are going to look for what works in romantasy and how to translate it in the picture book industry.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, whether that would kind of work its way down and become age appropriate, and all these things that we know we have to work under in the different industries. And that's also worth saying that we're talking a lot about kid lit today, kid literature, children's literature, and that's the industry we're all in. People have different audiences, so it's more about the audience rather than your genre. Really interesting chatting with everyone today. I think we've asked lots of questions but answered a lot as well, so I hope everyone has taken something from today. And thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, good chat.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. It's really interesting hearing all the different perspectives, isn't it? And yet yours, Anne, as an agent, because as we've said, agents are very few over here in Australia. Getting hold of an agent is, so hard. You've almost got to beg as an author for an agent to look at your work, and there's no guarantees at the end of the day. So yeah, it's been great to hear your perspective, Anne. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me
in on the conversation. It's always great to hear and listen to someone different who's in the trade, who knows what they're doing. I love that you are an editor as well. That for me, that is just such a bonus. That's an add-on. So well done, Anne.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. We need to stop here. I guess we could, as always, talk forever about the topics, but we have to leave it here, and we might welcome you back another time.
Sure.
Talk some more about agents and see how it's all going. So thank you, everyone. And I will see you all back here again for week 2. Week 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.